some of the different functions that how they're constructed, how they work. Two of interest, two of they were a little bit more esoteric, but something I'd like to share with you here. One is the sum if function, and the other one is the VLOOKUP function. All right, so we've got a worksheet here, which is like basically a listing of folks' names, salespeople. So it's a sales organization. Um, Items that were sold, what the cost was, what the sale price was, what the profit was, commission, and the days on the floor. All right. So um, this is a typical um, kind of report you would have if you were running a store. All right. And then down below here, what we have is a couple of um, we have a couple of uh, summaries down here. So we obviously we have the total, some totals of the total sales, total profit, average, and average profit. These are all so there's a function involved with this. All right, so there's a sum function for these, an average function for them as well. And then also, if we take a look up here under our names, under our namespace up here, what we have is we have a couple of name ranges. All right, so one is what we call profit, which is the profit column. All right. We have another named range, which is total profit. All right, which actually is, let's see, total sales. All right, so apparently these two are redundant. So profit and total profit are redundant. So we have a total sales column. And then in addition, we also have a table 2. All right, so table 2 is the entire range of data here. So this is a named range. Does not include the top row. All right, so if I was to look at this, this is the named range, is the everything starting with cell, I believe that's going to be A2, through to K28. Okay, so this is some basic stuff coming in. All right, so what we want to do, so the calculations, so some of the stuff we want to do here is, it's easy to get the sum. What I do is to get the sum, I simply use a sum function and put the named range in. So I do sum of total sales. Total sales is this column, and that's our number. All right, that's our result. And the same thing is true with total profit. This is our total profit. Summarize it, and I can do the average. Now, where it gets a little trickier is this next piece. So these two tables down here, or this table right here, is what we want to do is we want to go through this table here. So we have we have different entries. So what you look at, you'll see is these reflect different sales, okay, on different days. But if we're so one salesperson can sell multiple items. All right, and I have 4 different salespeople. So we have Crab, Christolfi, Tal, and Roberti. Those are 4. So what we want to do, so this first column here, what we want to do is we want to go through this table, and what we want to do is we want to say, okay, for a particular employee, so we'll look at Crab first. So for Crab, what we want to do is go through this column. All right, so this has the name in it. And what we want to do is for each time we find the name in this column right here, what we want to do is we want to take the sales price from here, okay? When we want to add that up. So what will happen is it will take the third row, it'll take the data from the third row, it'll take it from the fifth row, or the fourth, or these two here, it'll take this one, it'll take this one, and so on and so forth. Right? So how do we do that? All right. So, we can do this using a formula. And what we'll use a logical function, logical function using a sum if. All right, so the sum if is a two-part function. What it will do is it will execute a sum if a certain criteria is met. All right. So the way this is constructed, this gets a little bit interesting, because what happens is we have a table here. All right. So if we take a look at our named ranges again, we have a table 2. All right, which is all of this data here. Doesn't include the column headers. All right, it's only just the data. That's one of the things we said about tables, or excuse me, of named ranges. Just the data. All right, but one of the features that's in Excel is I can take a named range, and if there are columns, I can put a header on it and use those headers and use the header. It's one of those, kind of esoteric things in Excel. So how that would work would be, let's take a look at our formula here. I can do table 2, which is the named range, last. So if I come down here, just to show you an example of this, I'm going to do an equal table 2, structured reference, table 2. All right, and then what I can do is if I want to see the second column in that, all right, which is the last name, I can say table 2, and in square brackets, I can say last name. And I can close it off. And what it'll do is it'll actually pull that out. It'll give me that entire column. Right? So if I want to come next to it, on this one right here, if I want to say equal, if I want to do table 2 and make it the say date sold. All right. So I've got this, and actually the reason why that is looking funky is because that's a date, and what I would need to do here, we'll come here and format this as a short date. And you'll note now all of a sudden all the cells are now formatted. They show very nicely as date. So I can use this notation. I can use this, define a table and then select out an individual column of that table just by putting a header on it and referencing that header. Okay. So how do we use that in the formula? So what we'll do is we'll look at how we construct this. So we'll say we have a sum if. So the way you read a sum if would be is sum everything in this first column, or we'll summarize. We'll create do a calculation of a sum. All right. What we'll do is this is what we will search. All right. So this is the column. This table 2 last is the column we're going to search, and we're going to look for something that matches this column, this field right here. All right, so this is going to be this is cell G33. All right, so G33, the way we would read this would be, okay, match everything in this column with the value in G33, and if there's a match, add the value from total sales, or sales price, into the summary. Right? So what it'll do is it'll scan through, it'll spin through this table, add all these values, look for all these values. If it finds a match, it'll add the value. And then at the end, we will put the sum result in the cell right here because this is where the formula is at. All right. So when you first look at it, it's not quite as clear. It's one of the things with formulas and the parameters. So in this case, what we're doing is we're saying we're identifying through this notation right here a column that we will basically spin through within the named range. All right. And if we find a match to this and this, we'll take whatever the number we have here, we add it. Okay. And then what we would do is by creating that formula here, and I can copy it, you know, and auto, you know, transfer it down using the I can create the formula here, grab the pull down, pull it down, and what we will get is we will get the formula, you know, applied to all these other cells. Okay, so that's the sum. That's an example of sum if. There's other, you know, there's a lot of different ways we can do it, but it was one that was kind of, I think, is an interesting application of it. So the other one I want to do a quick demonstration of is the VLOOKUP. All right. So the VLOOKUP is a function. So there's two lookups. There's a VLOOKUP and an HLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP assumes your column is vertical. All right, so you have you have you know, basically row, 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 versus an HLOOKUP, which is based on columns. All right, so for a VLOOKUP, what we have is we have a table down here. All right, so the table is this cell down here. This, if we look at the formula here, what we will see is this is the cell. This is a table. Now what we did here is we named it we're using the actual address notation here. Now what I can do is I can take this, I can take this range right here, and I can give it a name. I'll call this bonus table. Okay, and now what I can do here is I can use I can replace this notation here. I can change this notation here with bonus table. Nope, didn't like that. Hang on a sec. Hang on a second. One of the things you run into sometimes when you're working with when you're working with a formula is that it will, you know, Excel will do things like, for example, if you're working in a cell, it will assume that your cell is what you're actually doing something with that cell, and all of a sudden you find yourself you've clobbered data. So basically, what will happen in situations like that, you simply you can execute what we call here the lookup, or a undo typing. So if I come here, if you note my change, so H33 bonus table, and you'll note that the value is exactly the same. Right, so either I can put a reference in here, as you see with these other cells, or I can put the named range. And what I can do is, if I was inclined, I could drag that down. All right, and if I look at these now, These all point to bonus table as the named range. And if I look here at bonus table, it'll be the range. Okay, now the mechanics of this are, it's pretty simple. All right, what you start off with is you want to do your lookup. All right, so for our lookup here, what we want to do is we'll use this value right here. All right, and we'll match this value against the row. So this value right here is 8980. We will use that as our value, as our search value. This is the H33. We will then look it up in this table. All right, we'll do a VLOOKUP, which will say, okay, I'll take this value and I'll match it against this column in the table. And whatever number it falls within that range, it'll take the next column. All right. And how we can define that is we use this number right here. So this third value is what happens when we find a match. All right, so if I find a match, so what happens is when I match the range, if I do 8980 compared to this table is greater, it's beyond the 5500. So we'll put the value of 150 here. Right, so this is the 2. This is 1. This is 2. If I have a third column, or fourth column, or fifth column, if I put 3, if I create a 3-column table, all right, what it will do, so just to give you a quick example here. I can do a copy. And I'll make this, say, 2000. Just for fun. And then what I'll do is I will adjust the range. I'll adjust my name range. Just so I have something there. And what I will do is I will change my value. So what I'll do is I'll change my name range. And I'll call this bonus table. Actually, what I'll do is I'll call it bonus table. Let me create this, because I'd have to go to the other screen and delete it and replace it. So we'll create a new one. We'll call it So I'm going to create a new bonus table called bonus table 2. Right, so if I come up here and I say bonus table 2, if I click that, it's this whole table here. Right. So what I'm going to do now is I will change the lookup just a little bit. All right. So what I'm going to do is instead of bonus table, I'm going to make it bonus table 2, which is the broader, which is going to be 3 columns wide. And instead of 2, I'm going to put a 3. And see what we get. Now you see now, I pulled the third column into here. All right. So the VLOOKUP is doing, so what happens with a lot of these functions, there's actually a lot of programming logic is built into these. So, you could, because what we used to do before we had these functions, a lot of these functions, you could do this stuff manually. You could create logic that would do this stuff, that you could move things around through more sophisticated formulas. But the fact that we have this function now, we can do this so we can actually simplify this logic. All right. So that's really, so I wanted to, as I said, do a quick demonstration of these two, because I know there's a bunch of different things we're looking at, but I wanted to kind of give you a sense of some of the, some of the things we can do using these formulas. and functions to to manipulate data. All right, that's it.